For Session Daily Update, I'm Sarah Allen. The House floor session is scheduled to begin shortly. It's expected to be a bill processing day on the floor, with bills receiving their first reading. The first deadline for committee action is coming up. Members of the House have until the 20th this month for committees to act favorably on their bills. Let's now go to the House floor.
Excellent is your name in all the earth, who have set your glory above the heavens. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have ordained. What is mankind that you are mindful of them, and the children of mankind that you visit them? For you have made them a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned them with glory and honor. You have made them to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet. We welcome your presence this morning. We welcome your presence this morning because we need you right now. You have blessed us with the privilege to be elected officials representing thousands of citizens. Yet, as springtime quickly approaches with the melting of the snow, the sessions shall soon come to order, and what was once solid ground is now fluid, slippery, and muddy, where too many of us remain stuck in issues such as recruiting the best and brightest teachers to produce and to nurture the best and brightest students that can successfully compete on this global economy. Human respect and dignity, which is right and deserving of all people. Yes, black lives do matter, but so does every life, regardless of race, economic class, and education, because we are all of one blood. Who or what is important? It is the most that we can receive for one another. Doesn't make a difference what the economic engines are, because we understand that they, in due time, will fuel the self-destructive appetite of envy and greed. We have issues such as what programs should be supported and with how much money should we provide. Will it be just enough to say that we supported them, or will we support them with enough to sufficiently and successfully get the job done? What about gainful employment for the dominant culture? But I pray equally for the gainful employment of every minority in Minnesota as well, whether roadways, stadiums, private buildings, and the like. Yes, Lord, we need your help today. God, some of us are stuck today, and we need your wisdom to get out of the mud. Lord, you said, if any of you lack wisdom, let them ask of God, who gives it to everyone liberally. However, with one condition, that whoever asks, let them ask in faith without doubting. Lord, you said, nothing is too hard for God. Therefore, I ask on behalf of these elected officials here today, grant them the wisdom that they need to get themselves out of the mud and to bring others out with them. Grant them the wisdom that they need to set the state of Minnesota on a sure foundation, a foundation that is stronger than yesterday's. Lord, grant them the wisdom to lead this state to a bigger, a brighter, and a better tomorrow, because it's springtime in Minnesota, and we will never forget to give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. And let we, the people, say today, amen.
Members, the chaplain for today is the Reverend Dr. Charles L. Gill from Pilgrim Baptist Church here in St. Paul. The Pledge of Allegiance. Members, please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will take the roll. clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal from the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 89th session, 25th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Tuesday, March 10th, 2015.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing and seeing no objections, the journal stands as approved by the chief clerk. Reports of standing committees and divisions. Members, a copy of this order of business has been placed at each member's desk. If there is no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing and seeing no objections, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading, House File number 1432.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The chief clerk will report the House files for their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 1726 through 1763.
First reading of House Files 1726 through 1763. Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. We will take action on these motions first. Hearing and seeing no objections, the motion prevails. Motions and resolutions.
Lucero moved that House File number 723 be recalled from the Committee on Governmental Operations and Elections Policy and be re-referred to the Committee on Commerce and Regulatory Reform.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is a free market bill related to municipal liquor stores, and I have spoken to both committee chairs, and they are agreeable.
Thank you, Representative Lucero. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if Representative Lucero could tell us exactly what the bill does. I mean, I looked at it online, and it has something. It does affect local governments in their abilities. Is it going to end up back in local government, our government operations?
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it will come back. This is just going to go to Commerce, and what it does specifically is local municipal liquor stores have the ability to create a government-run monopoly for themselves. This removes that ability to have a monopoly, does not remove their ability to have a municipal liquor store.
Any other discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion carries.
Petersburg moved that House File number 1423 be recalled from the Committee on Transportation Policy and Finance and be re-referred to the Committee on Taxes.
Representative Petersburg, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is my motion. House File 1423 went to transportation first. It really is a tax issue. In talking with the chair, we believe it does not need to be heard in transportation and should go directly to taxes. Whereas it does talk about fuels in the bill, it is really about the taxing issue that's there. Chair Davids also agrees, so I've talked with both, and that's where we would like it to go.
Any further discussion to the Petersburg motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion carries.
Drazkowski moves that House File number 1706 be recalled from the Committee on Taxes and be re-referred to the Committee on Legacy Funding Finance.
Representative Drazkowski, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members, I have actually two motions back to back here. I am working on two bills that will provide for both legacy funded purchases of state land and also LCCMR purchases of state land related to the PILT liabilities. For those we've been talking, members, about this idea for several years. We actually have the bill drafted, and both this one and the next one, we want them to go to different committees first. Both of them will come back to taxes, so we'll go to both committees, actually all three committees in this case, and both committee chairs are good to go with this. I appreciate your support, Mr. Speaker.
Questions to the Drazkowski motion. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Drazkowski yield for a question?
Representative Hansen, he will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Drazkowski, I don't have the bill in front of me, and I was just wondering, is this bill an act relating to natural resources? Is it going to be coming back to the Environment and Finance Committee, or is it just going to the Legacy Committee?
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hansen. It will go to both. It will go to three committees. Representative Hansen will go to Legacy, then ENR, and then Taxes.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I like that when there are actually environmental policy and finance provisions, they go to the Environment Committee, so I would support this motion.
Any other discussion to the Drazkowski motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion carries.
Drazkowski moves that House File Number 1707 be recalled from the Committee on Taxes and be re-referred to the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources Policy and Finance.
Representative Drazkowski, to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Remember, this is the second of those two bills. This is the LCCMR one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Discussion to the Drazkowski motion. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Drazkowski yield to a question?
He will yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Drazkowski, is this bill an act relating to natural resources, so it would be going to the Environment Committee for that reason?
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hansen. Yes. And Mr. Speaker, if I could, it's dealing with natural resources and tax issues. Thank you.
Any other discussion to the Drazkowski motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Announcements. Representative Keel, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, last Saturday there was a very exciting hockey game between Hermantown and Crookston, or East Grand Forks. East Grand Forks. And my understanding was that it was quite an intense hockey game. I wasn't able to attend, but my East Grand Forks Green Wave were able to be successful in defeating Hermantown. I'm sorry, Representative Murphy, but for the second year in a row. So I'm very, very thrilled to congratulate them on the floor of the House. They have been very successful, and sometimes that's a challenge up in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Keel. The representative from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Mr. Speaker, I have a parliamentary inquiry, but I see that Representative Doubt's on the floor, and I wonder if he would yield to a question.
Representative Doubt will not yield to a question.
Very well. Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry, Representative Winkler.
Mr. Speaker, has the Speaker given the Government Operations and Elections Committee permission to meet on Friday?
Representative Winkler, I am not able to comment on that at this time because I do not have the answer to that question.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's why I was hoping Representative Doubt would be helpful enough to answer that question on the floor. It is a parliamentary inquiry. I believe that the Speaker has to give permission for committees to meet on Friday. I have a parliamentary inquiry. I'm going to have to establish some facts first. But, Mr. Speaker, I have a copy of the calendar for the Government Operations and Elections Committee, and I don't see House File 43 calendared for Wednesday or Thursday. And if they don't have permission to meet on Friday, that means that under House Rule 4.31, the 10 days will have expired after my request to return House File 43 to the House. which means that I believe on Monday a demand would be in order, and the Speaker would have no choice but to return the bill from the Government Operations Committee to the whole House and place it on the General Register. So, Mr. Speaker, my parliamentary inquiry, and I think it's important that we answer this week. Yesterday we had a motion on the floor sponsored by the Lignite Council to move a bill out of the Environment Committee, even though it was an environmental pollution bill. And in fact, I think sponsored by an organization who is a national lobbying group that doesn't disclose any of its, it doesn't have to disclose its funders, much like the funders of some of the organizations that operate in Minnesota. So that money is moving, and it's moving bills around the legislature, and the people of Minnesota don't get a chance to know about it. So with the 10-day clock ticking, Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary inquiry is, on Monday, am I correct in understanding the rule that I am going to be able to demand that House File 43 move from the Government Operations Committee and be placed on the General Register?
Representative Winkler, you, in accordance with the rules, would be able to present a written demand on Monday asking for your request, and it would be acted upon at that time in accordance with the wishes of, in accordance with the rules.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that clarification.
Announcements. Representative from Hennepin County, Representative Hertas.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Yesterday, Representative Thiessen had made some remarks and comments about the tax rates and the tax structure. Representative Thiessen has made several passionate pleas about state spending and government at least twice, if not three times. Mr. Speaker, I was wondering if Representative Thiessen would yield to a question, please.
He will yield, Representative Hertas.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, yesterday you stated that tax rates will be declining or have declined. Could you please explain in more detail exactly what you were referring to in that statement?
The representative from Hennepin County, the Minority Leader, Representative Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Hertas. I'm referring, I can show you the report if you want to walk over here afterwards. I can show you the actual document. But it is the report from the Department of Revenue that just came out this week that goes through the Minnesota effective tax rates from 2012 to 2017. And for the bottom 9 deciles, so the 90%, except for the top 10%, the effective tax rate between 2012 and 2017 is projected to go down for all of those deciles.
Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, I'm glad that you were referring to that study because I too did run it and I reviewed the data that's in there. And I think it's important to note that in order for those statements to be true, the incidence study makes an assumption that everybody's income is going to increase by 25% by the year 2017. And that composite effective tax rate, which he was quoting, is stating that it would go from 11.5% to 11.4%, which is 1/10 of 1%. Now, that report assumes that 25% increase in wage growth. So, folks, if your income doesn't go up by 25%, what that really means is, as an experience rate, your burden of taxes that you pay is actually going to go up. It's not going to go down as expressed as a percent of your income. More troubling in the report is that taxes, according to this report, are expected to increase on businesses by 18% during this same period. And the report states also that these costs tend to be shifted to consumers in the form of higher prices. So if businesses are going to incur an 18% increase in indirect costs through taxation, my question would be, how will businesses be able to raise wages 25% over the next 2 years? I wonder how the 1,700 workers at a big box store are thinking that their wages are going to go up 25% by 2017. Or for that matter, the several hundred that are being laid off by a big miller and processor here in town. The incident study uses a baseline data of 2012, which was the Republican budget, the same budget that Governor Dayton rejected and shut down government for 3 weeks.
Mr. Speaker.
The same budget that he signed a little bit later. And
Mr. Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
Representative Moline states your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, what order of business are we on?
Representative Moline, we are on announcements.
Thank you.
So government's been on a very steady march larger over the last 2 years. In fact, in all fund spending, government has increased by 15.2%, while our private sector growth has only been about 3.9%. Folks, that's nearly 4 times the rate of growth in government than the private sector. So I just want to close with, I really welcome the remarks that Representative Thiessen is concerned about the spending in this body, and I would hope that you share those same convictions as I do and other members that we need to do that. And although you articulated all of the appropriation and spending bills that are in here, I would hope that you agree or would admit at least that spending is about priorities, so the fact that other people have introduced ideas in terms of where to spend money, that those aren't the types of things that are going to actually end up, necessarily all of them, in the budget. So thank you.
Announcements. Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I just wanted to announce it's 50 degrees out today in a much more prosperous Minnesota.
Announcements. Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Thursday, March 12th, 2015.
Representative Pepin moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, March 12th, 2015. All those in favor signify by saying aye. The motion prevails. All those opposed? The motion now prevails. Representative Pepin.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Pepin moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? The motion prevails. The House is adjourned until 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, March 12th, 2015.